Well, welcome back. Again, we're here with Pete Peterson. We've discussed the farm team, and we've discussed what needs to be done. Ethnic outreach with the Republican Party.
Yeah.
You know, we're known as the white male party, so to speak. And there's nothing wrong with that, except that just is not what the nation looks like, or what the state looks like.
Right.
And I think that is another issue that the party has that needs to be addressed. How do you feel about the diversity of the party?
Well, I think we certainly have to improve the diversity, and we were talking before about Ruben Morales and the great work he's doing with Grow Elect. Sean Steele has done some terrific work in the Asian American community as well. I think we certainly can improve the outreach we're doing in African American communities too. But I would also say, Albert, I think this is really important, that in all politics, it's not just what you're doing, it's what your opponent is doing. And what I'm foreseeing over the next few years, and I think we're seeing some glimmers of it now, is that the California Democratic Party, I think, is becoming increasingly removed from those grassroots and ethnic minorities that have always supported the candidacy.
I agree with you.
And so in that, as the Democratic Party, I think, becomes much more focused on identity politics and environmental issues and things that really aren't supporting small businesses and entrepreneurs, that make it hard for people, certainly in the lower and lower middle classes, whether it's gas taxes or other penalties that are placed on business, where they are on education, for example, that there's a great opportunity opening up here for Republicans to do that outreach now, to reach out into those communities and say, hey, the Democratic Party that you've always supported is becoming increasingly detached from your interests. Because I think at its best, the Republican Party, especially here in the state, is one that wants to make government work for people, at the same time wants to get it out of people's lives, but at the same time wants to improve the lives of people in such a way that allows people to associate and work together, that it very much is a freedom-forward party, but at the same time is also a welcoming party. And I think, to your point, that's not what we've become. That's not what we are. But I think, again, there's a great opportunity here to build bridges now that the Democratic Party is showing itself to be more of a Bernie Sanders party, in that it is moving further and further left, and I think becoming increasingly detached from audiences that I think would give us another opportunity to speak to them.
That's great. Talking about in a couple of weeks, we're going to have the Armenian genocide. And I'm sure you're well aware of the Armenian genocide and what the implications are. What is your, first of all, stance on it, and how do you see the Armenian genocide and the commemoration of the Armenian genocide since 1915?
So it's one of the great tragedies in human history, not just in recent history. It's something that, again, because of the way that it's treated somehow as being something where there are people that I think, and certainly nations, that are protecting their own interests and not giving due appreciation to the horrific acts that were committed back in 1915. I think really we would be so much better served if everyone would come together around a due recognition for the great suffering that was experienced by the Armenian people. I have so many Armenian friends. That's one of the reasons that I even know them as fellow Americans, is because they were driven out of their homes during that time. And so I think to acknowledge that and be aware of it, and to call out those, to have a just appreciation of history, because I think that's what we do well as conservatives as well, is we know our history and we treat facts as facts, and we call people to account and to justice who should be brought to justice. And so in this, I think there needs to be a much better and widespread due recognition of the immense, incredible, overwhelming sufferings of the Armenian people in that time, but also the reverberations of that now. And you know this much better than I do, and I'm sure the viewers here will also see that there's reverberations. It didn't just happen in 1915. Lives and generations of people were affected by this. And we would enter into so much of a clearer healing process if we would understand it as it actually was, and to appreciate and commemorate rightly those who suffered so greatly.
Oh, thank you. Now, the million-dollar question. Pete Peterson in the next 5 years.
Well, certainly
in the next 2 years, for that matter.
Well, I can say myself, certainly for the next 2 years. I plan to be Dean of the Graduate Policy School at Pepperdine. This is a great job. And it also, because of my passion for politics and policy, I get a chance to affect and prepare the next generation of leaders. And so the chance to do that every day is something that I'm very grateful for and very appreciative of Pepperdine as a unique school. As we look further out, time will tell. I think I'm always going to be involved in politics and policy. This is a passion of mine. I always want to be involved in California. I love this place, and I'm not a native of it, but I've developed such a deep and abiding love of this state. But I also see some of the issues we talked about before, that the politics in the state are changing. And so I'm really excited to play a role as these politics change and these categories that we look at, Republicans and Democrats, I see new coalitions building. And I look forward to being a part of that.
Well, thank you for coming in. I'm sure we'll have many more of these interviews in the upcoming years, and I appreciate you coming down to our program. Thank you for joining us today. We hope to see you again next week, and with a new guest, Sean Steele will be joining us in the studio. Thank you.